Let me pray as we're starting out, and we'll look to the Lord on all of this. Father, thank you for dads. We pray for dads, but we also pray for the rest of us in the room, everybody being represented, that, God, what you want for us to hear from this message, we would hear it. For those that have ears to hear, let us hear. And so, Father, would you do that and use what you're doing in the life of Jacob and what you're doing in the life of Joseph and his brothers and the rest of them, that it wouldn't just be a story, but that your word would do its work and surgically be effective. So we ask you that in the powerful name of Christ. Amen. Have you ever heard of this thing that I'm going to have up on the PowerPoint here? This is called, you can do a Google search on it for image Google search, called the quadrant of time management. Okay, so if you're like, oh, I'd like to get that on, I could always throw it on the Facebook page, but some of you may not have that, and so if you want to do a search on your own, the quadrant of time management, you can write that down and look and stuff. And it's an interesting way of looking at things. I'm thinking about us as dads, but all of us are involved in this. What we do, where we put the different aspects of our life and how we look at life. And so look at this for a moment. The quadrant 1 is the important and urgent. And these are usually pretty evident. There is a light that goes off on your car dashboard. Or you go to Walmart or Jiffy Lube and they go, boy, we checked your tires, and it'd probably be good if you did that. It's just, this is something that has to happen. This is something that you need to take steps on. Or you're sick. You need to get to the doctor. You've been coughing and something urgent. There's an emergency, a crisis, an accident. Something happens, and everything is dropped because it's important and it's urgent. We all know that. Instead of going to number 2, let's go to the third one. Quadrant 3. Not important, but urgent. Do you know what that is? That's those interruptions. That's those things that, there's a person that in your life thinks that what they're needing at that point is urgent, but you look at it and you go, this really isn't that important at the time. And I'm saying this really is the case. Some of you are like, no, it's important. It's not important. And that's kind of easy to see. You can see how some of these things kind of blend. This, I would hope for many of us, is a no-brainer. The quadrant 4, the time wasters, not urgent, not important. I've got to get a status up on Facebook. I'm binge watching a Netflix show. I've got to watch the fourth one. The fourth hour, not a half-hour show, the fourth hour. This, really, it's not urgent and it's not important. But if we're, and dads, we can do this. We can put a lot in there, our hobbies and things along that line. And we're so good at rationalizing, I can do this. I can use this for ministry. I've done that one. I can use this for ministry. Really? Are you using it for ministry? That second one. That's something that I think we need to really think about. It's at the time it doesn't feel urgent. This doesn't feel urgent, but it is important. It is the planning. It is the prevention. It is the improvement. I really could use some exercise. Because down the road, that will help my health. But it's not necessarily screaming at me, but it is important. Or that conversation that I should have with my wife, but we're so busy, how do I get that? And to be, literally, look, we have got to talk about this thing. This has got to come up. And we could put it off, but then if we're not careful, this stuff Q2 will move into Q1. And then we're dealing with it. Does that all make sense? And so I'm kind of saying to us as dads that we would look to get your attention to kind of, hopefully this is a Q2 talk, that we would say as we look at the quadrant that, Lord, that box number 2, I need some of the things that Jacob is talking about here, some of the things that Joseph is learning here, so that it doesn't become that. And so help me to prioritize what truly is important, what truly should be priority in my life. And the word is given to us for that. I really believe a lot of what we do here is Q2. It's God's way of kind of getting our attention and to saying, okay, this guy messed up, or this guy did well. Take that into account. The ones that did well usually went to their Savior, understood their weakness, and said, I'm all in. I'm gonna follow you on this. I'm gonna trust you because you're really smart, God. So let's jump into this message today. We're in Genesis chapter 46. Title of it is How Will I Know? And we've got a few verses to go through here, and I've even got a bunch of Hebrew Canaanite names that are going to get interesting, and that's why I didn't have anybody reading Scripture today. I usually try to take that one myself, so I know you're always enjoying my enunciation and pronunciation of these names that most of the time is completely wrong. All right, so let's keep going here. Chapter 46. First point. We have promotion. We have promotion. Look at verse 1 with me. So, now remember what has happened last week when we talked about this. Joseph has made his brothers aware of who he is. There's crying, there's all this stuff, and he says, go home, get Dad. I want to see Dad. And so Jacob, whose other name is Israel, the supplanter, the deceiver, the stealer, has become one who wrestles with God. Okay. So Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices to the God of his father, Isaac. And so this route to Egypt for Jacob went through Beersheba, and it's a site about 25 miles southwest of Hebron, and it was a favorite place of worship for both Abraham and Isaac. So it would be like for you, if you had to go someplace and on the way there was this camp that God did a work in your heart. You know, I would venture to say that if you guys were close to Word of Life, I bet you, but I'm not a gambling man, but if you did, that there'd be a part of you that would want to go there because God did something there in that island in New York. And I talked to some of you others. There was a church, there was a place, there was a spot where God did, and that's what this is for Jacob. He's making his way to Egypt. On the way, Beersheba is on that way. He stops, and there he remembers, man, God, you did what you said you would do. You made promises to me, and you kept them. And I want to sacrifice to you here, and to tell you thank you for what you've done. And he hasn't even seen his son Joseph yet, who he hasn't seen in years, that he thought was dead. He's so excited about that. Look at verse 2. And God spoke to Israel in visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, here am I. Then he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation, and I will also bring you up again. And Joseph's hand shall close your eyes. And so his fears, his concern, his anxiety about going to Egypt is just allayed. It's put aside by God, and he's saying, God's saying to him, you have my approval, and I'm confirming you, and I'm just telling you, this is my plan. I'm getting you down there. And he's met with him, and he's spoken to him in Genesis 28 and 32 and 35. And so all those things He's made these promises, and God's come through. Even then, when he's let God down, God has not let him down. And it says here, close your eyes. And this is a promise of dying peacefully in the presence of his beloved Son. Look at verse 5. Then Jacob set out from Beersheba. The sons of Israel carried Jacob their father, their little ones, and their wives in the wagons that Pharaoh had sent to carry him. They also took their livestock and their goods, which they had gained in the land of Canaan, and came into Egypt, Jacob and all his offspring with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters. All his offspring he brought with him into Egypt. The entire family moves to Egypt, and they would be there for 430 years. And it's interesting when you read those things and when you think about, we just had a farewell, we're talking about, you don't know what God has in store for you. How long did he really think he was going to be in Egypt? I would think that there was a part of him that's like, we're going to do this, but God's got to get me up here at some point. But I'm telling you, you think about how God does this in people's lives. If somebody had said to me, hey, just so you know, I'm a little kid growing up in Chicago. Hey, just so you know, you're not going to live here forever. Although you like the restaurants and the neighborhoods and stuff like that, you're going to actually move to a place where they hate you. No, where they hate every team that you've ever liked. No. You're going to move to a place and you're going to grow to love these people in another state. And your kids are going to marry people from that state. And then they're going to move to other states. And God's in control. And he can be trusted. And I'm glad he's in charge. So, he's moving down, and he may think all these things, and he's just going to trust the Lord. And I think that's God's calling on your life and mine, one step in front of another. Watch me work. Point number 2, we have propagation. Look at verse 8. Now these are the names of the descendants of Israel who came into Egypt. Jacob and his sons, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and the sons of Reuben, Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. The sons of Simeon, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman. It's interesting how God throws these things in here and there. The sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The sons of Judah, Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. But and Onan died in the land of Canaan. And the sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamul. The sons of Issachar, Tola, Puva, Yab, and Shimron. The sons of Zebulun, Sered, Elon, and Jaleel. These are the sons of Leah, whom she bore to Jacob in Padan Aram, together with his daughter Dinah. Altogether his sons and his daughters numbered 33. And so there's this genealogical register that's separately listing and totally the sons per wife and handmaid. And it's the first time that Moses referred to the family as a whole this way. Usually it would be in number order of the oldest to the youngest, but this time he's separating it by wives or handmaids. Look at verse 16. The sons of Gad, Ziphion, Haggi, Shuni, Esbon, Eri, Aradi, and Areli. The sons of Asher, Imnah, Ishva, Ishvi, Berea, with Sarah their sister, and the sons of Berea, Heber, and Malkiel. These are the sons of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to Leah his daughter, and there she bore to Jacob 16 persons. The sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, Joseph and Benjamin. And to Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, the priest of On, bore to him. And the sons of Benjamin, Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Ehi, Rosh, Muppim, Huppim, and Ard. These are the sons of Rachel, whom were born to Jacob, 14 persons in all. The sons of Dan, Hushim. The sons of Naphtali, Jaziel, Guni, Jezer, Goonie. It's a great 80s movie. Jezer and Shalem. These are the sons of Bilhah, whom Laban gave to Rachel his daughter, and these she bore to Jacob, 7 persons in all. And so all the sons and grandsons are listed. Verse 26, all the persons belonging to Jacob who came into Egypt, who were his own descendants, not including Jacob's sons' wives, were 66 persons in all. And the sons of Joseph, who were born to him in Egypt, were 2. All the persons of the house of Jacob who came into Egypt were 70. And so 66 is minus Onan, Ephraim, and Manasseh. Verse 27. No, I just read that. Jacob, Joseph, Manasseh, and Ephraim made 70. Verse 28. He had sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to show the way before him in Goshen, and they came into the land of Goshen. So once again, if you notice, remember Judah is not firstborn, fourthborn, but he is the anointed leader. He's going ahead as Jacob's representative, and they go into Goshen, verses 29 and 30. Then Joseph prepared his chariot. So now he's excited. Look at this. Joseph prepared his chariot and went up to meet Israel his father in Goshen. He presented himself to him and fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. Israel said to Joseph, "Now let me die, since I have seen your face and know that you are still alive." So this is a beautiful reunion. What a touching thing to be able to see something like that. I don't know how you are if you ever watch the servicemen come home things. I'm just like a basket case. I remember one that I really liked where a little kid is given the opportunity to throw a first pitch at a Major League Baseball game. And they go out there, but they don't know that the dad is got the catcher's mask on. And the kid throws it, and they feel kind of stupid because it doesn't reach the whole way, and it bounces up and picks up the ball. The guy picks up the ball and runs out, and the kid's just standing there because it's like, oh, I didn't throw very well. And he takes off his mask, and I'm just a basket case. And the whole place just erupts. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. Could you imagine? Just the love and the beautiful scene that is going on here, and how all those brothers, the emotions that are going on, they realize, we were the ones who messed up, but look, wow, let's just appreciate all that's happened. So, point number 3, we have preparation. We have preparation. Look at verse 31. Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, "I will go up and tell Pharaoh and will say to him, my brothers and my father's household who are in the land of Canaan have come to me. And the men are shepherds, for they have been keepers of livestock. And they have brought their flocks and their herds." Now this is important, what we're about to get to here. I mean, that's all important, but stay with me. "And their herds and all that they have. When Pharaoh calls you and says, 'What is your occupation?' you shall say, 'Your servants have been keepers of livestock from our youth even until now, both we and our fathers, in order that you may dwell in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians.'" Now, take that in. You might be going, "Oh, what? Why?" They're kind of slamming themselves in front of the Pharaoh here. First of all, I love how God gives people wisdom. Like, there are times when you're heading out to a job interview. I'm talking to the young people right now for a second. Stay with me. You're heading out to a job interview, and you're dressed a certain way, and you think, they love me because everybody loves me. They don't, all right? They maybe someday, and your dad looks at you or your mom looks at you, and they say, "You're wearing that?" And you said, "Yes, they will just understand all my skills by looking at me." And the realization is they know things that you don't necessarily know. So dress in a way that will make yourself presentable. If you have a resume, I remember when Steve Etcher was talking to our young people about getting a job, and let's talk about a resume. And you might go, how hard is this? I'll get on, the internet, and I'll read how to put together one, and I'll just, find like a template for it, and I'll just throw in and it doesn't necessarily work that way. but you have somebody with an understanding of the protocol of what works. And so you're willing to, in weakness, humble yourself and say, you're smarter than me in this world. I'm going to trust you. And so you would think Joseph is a viceroy. He's second in command. He knows Pharaoh. He probably knows what he likes in his coffee. He probably knows his favorite TV show. He knows all of these things about Pharaoh. Knows everything about him. And he also knows when you are in Pharaoh's court, this is what works. This is what's going to be effective. This is what's going to get you what you need. But also, I think there's a part of Joseph too that he knows his brothers, and he knows their family, and he knows the calling of God on their life, and he also knows the Egyptians. And he wants to protect his brothers, and he wants to protect the offspring, and he wants them to be a separate people. Remember we talked about this last week? God calls every one of us to Egypt, figurative speaking. But I don't have to become all that they are. And so, of all things, God provided this place called Goshen, and Joseph is so smart that he knows that my people, my family, the people that I love dearly, the people that I know have to live in this culture, but they need to be separated from it because they are polytheistic. We're going to find out about that when we work through Exodus, all the different gods that Egypt has. But we've got one God. And we're going to be living in Goshen. And Goshen works best for shepherds. And they hate shepherds. And guess who else they hate? They hate sheep. We'll keep going here because there's a few more things we'll see. But he's saying he wants them to stay separate. And I think that's sometimes our calling too. Let's keep going. Point number 4, we have presentation. We have presentation. Chapter 47, beginning at verse 1. So Joseph went in and told Pharaoh, my father and my brothers, with their flocks and herds and all that they possess, have come from the land of Canaan. They are now in the land of Goshen. Now look at, and Joseph's so smart, look at this. And from among his brothers he took 5 men and presented them to Pharaoh. Do you get that? He doesn't want every one of the brothers there. There's always that, Naphtali. He's always interesting at these things. I don't know if it was Naphtali. It doesn't say. But he knows who the best guys to put in that situation are. Pharaoh said to his brothers, what is your occupation? So he queued him up. I don't know if you've ever had this where people are trying to help you. Just so you know, when you're in this, they're going to ask you this. And you could sit there and go, I got this. Listen. And it says exactly what Joseph said he would say. What is your occupation? They said to Pharaoh, and boy, they were smart. They listened. Your servants are shepherds as our fathers were. They said to Pharaoh, we have come to sojourn in the land, for there is no pasture for your servants' flock, for the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. And now, please let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best of the land. Let them settle in the land of Goshen. And if you know any, and look at this is really cool. If you know any able men among them, put them in charge of my livestock. Isn't it interesting? This lifestyle is an abomination to me, but I like certain things that you guys will take care of for me. Does this sound familiar at all? Some of you are looking at me like, no. Let me help you. I don't believe that God came down in 1776 and helped co-author the Declaration of Independence. Okay, I want you to know that. I don't think that is what happened. Now, some of you are like, are you kidding me? Of course he did. Okay, then it's inspired writ, and it should be added to our scriptures. Okay, but it's a really good document. Really good stuff. And I think for lack of a or even though there's a bunch of people that would disagree with me, I really believe that there are many Judeo-Christian ideas started our country. I just believe it. Now, I can't believe, I just believe it. And here's why I believe it. Because there's like a lot of writings that prove that they do. And there's things being rewritten and stuff like that. But I don't think everything they did, like I don't think Benjamin Franklin and George Washington walked around there like halos and everybody, okay. No. But even in some of their most interesting things, the philosophies behind all of that were good and helped the start of our country. I also think that there are some Christian ideals that our country has benefited from. Like this country, even though I know we make a lot of mistakes and I know we've messed up in a lot of areas, I understand that. We could talk about that. But there is a lot of good things this country has done. And a lot of the things that they have done are because they actually believe the Bible. Like hard work is like a biblical principle. Helping the poor is a biblical principle. And I could keep listing a lot of these things that are from the Bible. But as our country moves away from that, and they'll rewrite history, or they'll go, no, that wasn't true, and some of it, maybe it's whatever. But when I look at the biblical principles, and when you and I, as people that are in church, do church, and we love the Lord, and things along that line, this is like a good thing for us, isn't it? Like we go here, I know you're like, yeah, that's why we're here, all right? I mean, let me put it this way. You're in a really bad neighborhood. Just pretend with me for a moment. There are some that exist. And you're in a bad neighborhood, and it's dark. And you walk around, and there's an alley, and there are 7 guys coming toward you, the dark of night, out of that alley. 7 guys. You with me? If you found out that those 7 guys just left a Bible study, doesn't that change the picture at all for you? No, there's some evil guys that come out of Bible study. Okay, there might be, all right. And there are Christians that have messed up, okay. But just, wouldn't you feel a little bit better? So isn't it ironic that our country, we have all these things that we benefit from, and even people that don't even care about God, it's good for you. I'm going to enjoy the benefits of it, but I don't want it. That's what I think Pharaoh's like. I like lamb. It tastes good. Or whatever he eats with his, or whatever reason that he likes livestock. But I don't like them, and I don't like you guys that take care of them. And by the way, the world doesn't like our shepherd. The world does not like, he is at odds with this world. Our shepherd named Jesus. Oh, and also, his sheep are an abomination to this world. So, welcome to what you've signed up for. And so if you and I are ever surprised, why are people like this? Why are people responding? He told us it would be this way. Jesus talks a lot about persecution. And we've been blessed for so long that we think it's always going to be a certain way. If I gave you the numbers that over the years I've seen statistically, like China, how many Christians there were pre-revolution, pre-Christianity being squashed in their minds, we're talking maybe 50,000 and growing to 500 million underground. God knows what he's talking about. And so some of you are like, I don't want that. None of us, you'd have to be an idiot to run. I want to be persecuted. You don't run to it, but when it comes, we can't be shocked. We live in Egypt, folks, metaphorically speaking. And God's called us to Goshen. but we are going to permeate and impact the people that are around us. Verse 7. Then Joseph brought in Jacob his father, this is huge, and stood him before Pharaoh. Now look at this. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Now, I don't know about you. In culture, the bigger deal blesses the littler deal. Did you read this? The most powerful man in the world at that time has a guy from Canaan show up that smells like sheep, and he's the one blessing him. And I'm telling you, it is a word, I believe, from God to you and me, that if we walk with him and follow him, that God will bring you into throne rooms, he will bring you into places, and you, when you speak, you are, if you desire to be that person, you don't have to be perfect, but you do have a desire to walk with God, that you would speak for the living God. And that comes from spending time in his word, from having a relationship, from desiring to speak a blessing. And it is going to be amazing how God will use you if you want that. Verse 8. And Pharaoh said to Jacob, how many are the days of the years of your life? As he's looking at it, he's like, man, this guy looks old. And Jacob said to Pharaoh, the days of the years of my sojourning are 130 years. And look at this. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and they have not attained the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their sojourning. And so he's asked a question, and he answers with an interesting outlook. He remembers the bad stuff, but he's also realizing, you think I'm old? You should have met my dad. You should have met my grandpa. They're like old. And by the way, I'm like the worst of them. If there's any part of you, and by the way, I just got done blessing you. Verse 10, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from the presence of Pharaoh, and he just leaves him. Point 5, we have plenty. We have plenty. Look at verse 11. He goes on and he says, then Joseph settled his father and his brothers and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And so there's a different name here for Goshen, and I think it's for, as people would be reading this document from Moses, this letter from Moses, this narrative from Moses, that they would go. They may not have heard of Goshen, but as time goes by, that thing called the land of Ramses. Yeah, that's where they were living. Verse 12. And Joseph provided his father, his brothers, and all his father's household with food according to the number of their dependents. And so there's a rationing system that seemed to be put in operation. Verse 13. Now there was no food in the land. This is interesting as you look at this when you think about finances and you think about taxation and you think about all the different things that are going on. There was no food in all the land, for the famine was very severe, so that the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan in exchange for the grain that they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when the money was all spent in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, give us food. Why should we die before your eyes? For our money is gone. And so the severity of this famine, it bankrupted both Egypt and Canaan, the rest of the known world. And there's no monetary opportunities at all. And so it seems to be a barter system is now established. Look at verse 16. And Joseph answered, give your livestock, and I will give you food in exchange for your livestock. So it's interesting how even they're required to work, they're required to exchange. They're not given necessarily just stuff for free. They're literally having to think this out and work out this deal with the person in charge here. Give your livestock, and I'll give you food in exchange for your livestock if your money is gone. So they brought their livestock to Joseph, And Joseph gave them food in exchange for the horses, the flocks, the herds, and the donkeys. He supplied them with food in exchange for all their livestock that year. And when that year was ended, they came to him the following year and said to him, "We will not hide from my lord that our money is all spent. The herds and livestock are my lord's. There is nothing left in the sight of my lord but our bodies and our land." So all of this is being replaced. Verse 19. "Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for food, and we with our land will be servants to Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, and that the land may not be desolate." So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. For all the Egyptians sold their fields because the famine was severe on them. I really look at this and I go, if you have a benevolent dictator who can be trusted, this is a man of God, I would see that they would be responsive to this. This is terrifying if you don't have that. The land became Pharaoh's. As for the people, he made servants of them from one end of Egypt to the other. Only the land of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had a fixed allowance from Pharaoh and lived on the allowance that Pharaoh gave them. Therefore they did not sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, "Behold, I have this day bought you and your land for Pharaoh. Now here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. And at the harvest you shall give a fifth to Pharaoh, and 4/5 shall be your own, as seed for the field, and as food for yourselves and your households, and as food for your little ones." Now I don't know how you read this. Do you read this and go, man, Joseph, he's taking advantage of people. He's asking of them all of this stuff. And when it comes down to taxes, he's asking for 20%. Now, can you believe he's asking for 20%? And some of you are like, I would gladly pay 20% taxes, all right? Look at this. Verse 19. Verse 25. And they said, look at how they respond. "You have saved our lives. May it please my Lord, we will be servants to Pharaoh." So Joseph made it a statute concerning the land of Egypt, and it stands to this day, that Pharaoh should have the fifth. The land of the priests alone did not become Pharaoh. So this extra measures impaired by Joseph to control the impact of the famine, and it still didn't make him unpopular in the land. It's interesting. He must have had not just a good PR team. They looked at him as just. They looked at him as someone that the hand of God was on. Last point number 6. We have partiality. We have partiality. Verse 27. "Thus Israel settled in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen, and they gained possessions in it, and were fruitful and multiplied greatly. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the days of Jacob, the years of his life, were 147 years. So for 17 years, Jacob has witnessed to the increase. He had a glimpse of the promises that God is keeping with Abraham and Isaac, and himself in the process of those being fulfilled." Look at verse 29. "And when the time drew near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, 'If now I have found favor in your sight, put your hand under my thigh and promise to deal kindly and truly with me. Do not bury me in Egypt.'" And so he's got this customary sign and the oath of the day, and he promises him, "No, Dad, I promise you I will take you back to the land that you've been promised." Look at verse 30. "But let me lie with my fathers, carry me out of Egypt, and bury me in their burying place." He answered, "I will do as you have said." And he said, "Swear to me." And he swore to him. Then Israel bowed himself upon the head of his bed. Look with me at Hebrews 11:21. "By faith," now this is the faith chapter in Hebrews, an amazing chapter. "By faith, Jacob, when dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph, bowing in worship over the head of his staff." So out of all the things, you'll see this by faith Noah, by faith Abraham, by faith Sarah, you'll see all these things. This is the thing that's listed about Jacob, what we're about to read. And it is the power of blessing And this is one of those where I really do want to get a hold of the dads. I want to get your attention. Your words are so important. Your words are extremely powerful. Yes, every one of our words are powerful. But there's something that I think God is communicating here. Because a lot of times, dads aren't talking. And that you may, it's just not my personality. But I think every now and then, even you quiet dads, there's a time where your son or your daughter maybe needs some affirmation. You pull them aside and you say to them, hey, I just want to tell you how special you are. I want to tell you that I see God working in your life. And your grandkids. I'm so excited about the day that, because I used to do this with my kids, tell them I really see God's hand on their life. I'd pray God's blessing on their life. Words are powerful. I remember one time my daughter came home, and this girl in junior high, and I mentioned this to the guys the other day at the men's prayer breakfast. This one girl in junior high can be tough for girls. God bless you, girls. And this one girl looks at my daughter in the hallway and just out of the blue says, "You're ugly." Oh, thank you. May I have another, And she said this, and this really hit me. She said, "You know what helped me there, Dad?" She told me this years later. In her mind, she goes, "I'm not ugly. My dad tells me I'm beautiful every day." And I did. And it was words. It was words. And that was just a physical character. I'm thinking of the times when you see your kid doing something right or getting it or something, or your grandkid, just an opportunity, or speaking the life of a young person. Power in it. I mean, you think about, how did God create the world? Through words. Let there be light. Boom. There's power in it. I'm not one of these name it and claim it guys. I hope you're not getting that message. All right? But I am a person that believes out of the blessings and cursings. And it can affect people. Verse 1 of chapter 48. We're almost done here. After this, Joseph was told, "Behold, your father is ill." So he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And it was told to Jacob, "Your son Joseph has come to you." Then Israel summoned his strength and sat up in bed. And Jacob said to Joseph, "God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me, and said to me, Behold, I will make you fruitful and multiply you. And I will make of you a company of peoples, and will give this land to your offspring after you for an everlasting possession. And now your two sons, who were born to you in the land of Egypt, before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine, as Reuben and Simeon are. And the children that you fathered after them shall be yours. They shall be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance." And by the way, if you ever looked at a map of Israel back in the old Bible days, you do not see a tribe segment called Joseph. You see Manasseh and Ephraim. And then the Levites, they were all over the place. They had allotments in every plot of land, whether it be Issachar, Zebulun, Reuben, and all those, because they were the priests. So they were allowed to have that for worship in each one of those districts. And so when you look at this, you go, oh yeah, that's right. That's where I see Manasseh and Ephraim. So let's keep going. Verse 7. "As for me, when I came from Padan, to my sorrow, Rachel died in the land of Canaan on the way, when there was still some distance to go to Ephrath. And I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. When Israel saw Joseph's son, he said, Who are these?" So he's blind and he needs some identification here. Verse 9. "Joseph said to his father, they are my sons, whom God has given me here. And he said, Bring them to me, please, that I may bless them. Now the eyes of Israel were dim with age." Does this sound familiar? "So that he could not see. So Joseph brought them near him, and he kissed them, embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, I never expected to see your face, and behold, God has let me see your offspring also. Then Joseph removed them from his knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand, toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand, toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on the hand of Ephraim, who was the younger. So he's got him set like this. Joseph had it all figured out. This is how I'm going to do the blessing thing. He puts him on the proper side in his mind, and Jacob changes things. Whose was the younger, in his left hand on the head of Manasseh, crossing his hands, for Manasseh was the firstborn. So we don't see he intentionally crossing his arms here, and he's alternating what Joseph expected to happen, and he blesses Joseph. I love this because I think sometimes we think we've got to do everything the way everybody else thinks, and that the blessing has to go to this most athletic, this most gifted person. And I think sometimes God goes, no. I just want you to know, I'm going to take the foolish things of this world and confound the wise. I'm going to take that person that you never thought was so sharp and use them in an amazing way. Watch your kids. Encourage the stuff that really matters. Compliment that. I'm so glad we've got great athletes and we've got great musicians and we got all stuff. But there are some times where there's certain times where I think there's kids that are sitting there going, I am so not good at some of these things. And they're thinking, how could God ever use me? He can use you in an amazing way. So that when people walk away, they're like, wow, you got a great God. You look at you. Verse 15. And he blessed Joseph and said, the God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life long to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the boys, and in them let my name be carried on, in the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. I'm so glad in this story, because this is a challenge for all of us. Let's finish well. Let's finish well. Let's be the kind of people that as we grow older, our kids would want to bring our grandkids to us. Because I know that in some families, I know they're like, I don't want my kid around Grandpa. He's weird. And I don't mean like weird like he's in the corner and he's really old and he's become that. I'm talking like he's done stuff that doesn't make him, he wouldn't bless my kid. Being around him would be bad. And I see this, Joseph looks at Jacob. Yes, he was a supplanter. Yes, he was a deceiver. But God changed him. God wrestled with him. He wrenched that leg. He'd had a limp. His walk changed. And now I can bring my kids because Dad is godly. Dad loves God. He believes God. He trusts God. He stops. He worships. They catch you doing things that show you have, and you don't get, okay, I got to time this just right. My kids are, verse 17. So this is so us. When Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. And he took his father's hand to move it from, I could just try to move my dad's hand. Took his father's hand to move it from Ephraim head to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said to his father, not this way, my father, since this one is the firstborn, put your right hand on his head. But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. Nevertheless, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his offspring shall become a multitude of nations. And so Ephraim did become a dominant tribe of the 12 or the 10 northern tribes. Verse 20. So he blessed them that day, saying, by you Israel will pronounce blessings, saying, God make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh. Thus he put Ephraim before Manasseh. Then Israel said to Joseph, behold, I am about to die, but God will be with you and will bring you again to the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given to you rather than to your brothers one mountain slope that I took from the hand of the Amorites with me, with my sword and with my bow. Had to get that in there. I love how us dads and grandpas got our stories. Let's pray. Father, thank you.